Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Chiku, as you already know that. I want to be talking about Jeffrey Dahmer, and I know most of us have watched the new Netflix docu series on the journey of a monster, the life of a monster. I was watching through some recaps, and I saw something that was very intriguing that kind of prompted me to talk about some of our cultural practices and kind of draw a relationship with the Jeffrey Dahmer's case. Experts try to understand why serial killers think the way they do, how their brain chemistry function, and the rest of it. So I want to bring this Iju-Ese and link it to Jeffrey Dahmer and talk about how our ancestors prevent things like this from occurring. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you have a video specification, you have to comment, and if you want to talk to me, you can always reach out to me via my website www.igboshrine.com or Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm going to leave the link down below. So don't forget and subscribe, and enjoy this video with me. Thank you. If you're new to this channel, I want to tell you a little bit of what I do here. I talk about Igbo spirituality and cosmology. I try to explain some of these concepts to us, the young folks, so we can be able to understand what our ancestors practiced and believed. And from there, we can forge ahead and socialize our children and the next generation properly on what these things are. So I try to make it as basic as possible. But I also have my website where I blog about these things. I do have some Google Meets or host rooms on Clubhouse. So if you're interested in joining these further conversations, you can always reach out to me. And don't forget, ordinary practice is always a personal thing. My interpretation of these concepts shouldn't define how you see these things. You should actually be able to do your own independent research. You should be able to go back to your villages, talk to your people, and understand how they also practice or how they also interpret these things. So I'm just here now to just give you like a baseline and to encourage you to do the needful. Let's talk about Jeffrey Dahmer and Iju-Ese. Thank you. I always take a few steps before I judge any Igbo practice, any Igbo cultural practice. I try to understand why they did this, why they're doing that. Now, from understanding the reasons why they do all those things, I kind of just draw my own conclusions. So I don't have to fall under other people's interpretation of what my culture is. Even via the locals, I might talk to somebody and the way the person is projecting a concept doesn't really boil down to me. So I would have to kind of do a reflection, and with the help of my album, I would always be able to have like a walk around it. So when we talk about Iju-Ese here, there are so many relationships that have actually been destroyed by this practice of Iju-Ese, which is the process of making inquiries to ensure if there are some distinctive markers which a family doesn't want to bring into their own family. We talk about the DNA, what we call Aoba, Oke Nane. That's what you get from your mother, what you get from your father, your genetic makeup. That's not just where it's on. So we always, we always take a bag before any marriage will take place. They're going to perform this Iju-Ese. Now it comes from two angles. They have to do the physical one and the spiritual one through Igbo. They would have to determine, because we believe that when you marry somebody, you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying that person's whole ancestors, their blessings, their cause, and the rest of it. So therefore, there now becomes a need for you to do what we call Iju-Ese. Now, let me look at the life of Jeffrey Dahmer. If you've not watched the docu-series, you have to prepare yourself for you to watch something that horrific. So looking at the guy's life, the father wrote a book, The Father's Story, trying to talk about how even him himself had these fantasies, these urges that his son had, which actually he now acted on those urges. But the difference between him and Jeffrey was that he didn't act on those urges. So he talked about the early life of Jeffrey and how he had a very good childhood. He was a sweet little boy until he had surgery for double hernia. Now, after that surgery, he recorded that he came out distant, he came out, isolating, and he came out changed and wasn't able to show any interest in any activity. Now, it gave him some concerns, yes, but at the end of the day, he had to kind of it gave him some concerns, yes, which now led to giving. Even before then, he was already having problem with the wife, which was later diagnosed to have PTSD, post-traumatic had PTSD. Now, that PTSD was actually left untreated. So most folks said that Jeffrey had no chance from the parent before the birth, the drugs, and the rest of it, that the guy literally had no chance. So when it came down to him having a hobby, because he picked up a roadkill and sort of picked interest in dissecting those roadkills. So when we look at those kind of things, they're like early signs of a problem, trauma, and the rest of it. So the father recorded that when we talk about, him having these urges means that he was the person that, through his genetic makeup was able to give that part of him to the son. Now, the surgery part of it, where he also said that probably when he was under, his brain wasn't receiving enough oxygen, so it literally now made him to become who he was or who he were. So that kind of became a problem. Now, the same thing now we'll talk about us now in our own culture, how our ancestors practice, how they try to avoid all those things. Now, during the process of Iju-Ese, that's to make inquiries if a certain family, it doesn't just go one way, it goes a two-way street, because the bride's family would also do their own investigation, the groom's family would also do their own investigation. Now, the purpose for this now is to determine if this family has a history of mental illness. Now, in the case of Jeffrey, imagine if they were Igbos, or if they had some sort of practice like we have now. The mother's side would not want to be engaged or be affiliated with the Dahmers. He would always be reserved to be a flirt, and she would not want to, get married to that family that has a history of mental illness. Now, mental illness does not just characterize as somebody being, mentally unstable, being sick, like physical madness and the rest of it. But when somebody is schizophrenic, depression and the rest of it. So they're trying to understand if this family has a mental illness. And once they verify and it's proven that this family has a history of mental illness, one of the family would have to pull out of that marriage contract. Now, another thing again that pushes these people to come out from a marital contract is when one family happens to be an Osun. They try to say, okay, no, this is not what we want. We don't want our blood to mix up with this kind of people. Now, you have to do another video on Osu, but you can actually check out what I wrote about Osu on my website. So it's going to help you to understand the reason why our ancestors kind of separated themselves from people they called Osu. Now, another aspect of this are people they feel that they have early mortality, that their mortality rate is quite high. So when they check, they ask, the question here is, do this family stay till old age, or do they just die at a certain age? Now, once they verify this part, it's also going to make them to not go further in any marriage contract. Now, they would also have to ask about how does these people behave? Do they have a history of violence? Do they have a history of being women, or they have a history of domestic violence? On a personal note, how does this person's father or how does this person's mother behave? So these essential questions are what they ask about a particular family before they go into what we call enowan, or maybe ime ego wan, ego isi wan. So these are the questions they ask. And when they've asked these questions and they are given a satisfactory answer, then the marriage or the imego can now commence. Now, on the spiritual level, what they do here, they go to a dibia afa, to do what we call ebo afa. That's divination. When they meet these dibias, they're trying to know, okay, the ezumezu, or the whole spiritual entity that is following this lady or this man, would it merge? Can they live together without the spiritual entities clashing and the rest of it. Once they ask that question, the divination tools would actually give a response. Now that's one part of it. They ask another question: does this man, does this woman, do they have, they ask this vital question: do this man or do this woman, do they have any spiritual spouse? They try to understand. They also have like a spiritual diagnostics about this person, trying to know if the whole the spiritual aspect of this individual, if it's healthy. Now once they've determined all those things, then the marriage can now also progress. This is why people will tell you that it's not really good for people to be for a woman to be married outside her father's house. So they have to do the whole that they say, they talk about the whole, pouring of the wine on the floor. It has its significance, has its own symbolism. So once they've actually done this whole process of Iju-Ese, both Igbo and both the physical aspect of it, now the marriage can now commence. But currently now, the only one that people are now, the only one our now culture is now more focused on is the physical aspect of this practice. That's the Iju-Ese that is done by the woman or the man's family, just to determine just to determine whether this marriage would actually hold, and determine all those things I've actually listed out. Now, to some other people, they would look at it as us being barbaric, but to a large extent, it has actually helped us to prevent having people like Jeffrey and a whole lot of them. Now, another thing that our ancestors actually do is when it comes to death and reincarnation, when a person that lived a terrible life, maybe because a person was used or manipulated people, used mystic powers to perform or to just keep people in a very terrible situation, then the women have this thing that they call this culture that they would have to this culture or funeral rites that they would perform, and to say that they don't want this person to reincarnate into this family or into this community again, because my people will believe in what they call onomado but no more. So it's because it is a situation where whatever we collectively say by ourselves, that's what the spirits are going to listen. So when they come together to say this person shouldn't reincarnate to this family because of what he or she did, now automatically the spirits are going to make sure that we don't have a reoccurrence of somebody like that. Now if we look at our own people now, historically we have people like Deriko Mama, and I've forgotten this other guy's name, Amini, somebody. So we have people like this now. Now we use this kind of funeral rites to prevent them from reincarnating and causing havoc that they caused in their previous life. So I'm going to stop here now, and until next time, see you guys. Thank you. So I hope you learned from this video, and I hope this video kind of gave you some interpretation or some answers while Iju-Ese is a very important aspect of our culture, spiritual and cultural beliefs. So for more information, you can always reach out to me. You can drop a video specification and I'm going to attend to it. You can always text me on my Instagram, my social media. There is link down below, and you can always visit my website. Don't also forget to share this video and also comment and also subscribe. So until next time, bye.